Hey guys, it's Tessa from handletheheat.com, where I love to share sweet treats with a sprinkling of science, and today I'm making for you pumpkin spice coffee cake with streusel and a maple icing. This coffee cake is loaded with pumpkin spice flavors. There's sour cream in the cake, pecans and brown sugar, cinnamon. It's so amazing, and it's the perfect fall recipe. Super easy as well. It takes less than 45 minutes to make, so let's go ahead and get started. We're starting with the streusel. So I have here some melted butter, and to that I'm just going to add some light brown sugar. And I've already pre-measured all of my ingredients with my kitchen scale. I usually like to weigh out my ingredients because it's that much more accurate. I also have some finely chopped pecans, a little bit of all-purpose flour, and some cinnamon. There is no shortage of delicious, warm, aromatic spices in this recipe. Your house will smell better than any candle. It's going to be amazing. So I'm just going to use a fork to combine all of those streusel ingredients, kind of going through any clumps in the brown sugar. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and set that aside to move on to the cake batter. Okay, so I already have my flour here, all-purpose flour for the dry ingredients for the cake batter. To that, I'm going to add a little bit of salt, some baking powder and baking soda. And then I'm going to be adding, of course, pumpkin pie spices. I'm using cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg today. You could also add allspice if you'd like. And then a little bit of brown sugar, and then granulated sugar. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir. Okay, so for the wet ingredients, I have vegetable oil, sour cream, and this is going to give a nice rich tanginess to the cake. And then next up, I have pumpkin puree. This is pure canned pumpkin puree. Be sure not to use anything that's made for pie filling. And then lastly, some beaten eggs. So I'm just going to combine the wet ingredients, stir them until it's nice and smooth, and don't forget that the full recipe with all of the ingredient amounts is over at handletheheat.com. Now I'm going to take my dry ingredient mixture and just create kind of a little hole in the center, and then pour in all of my wet ingredients and then gently stir it to combine. You want to be careful not to overmix this, otherwise you'll end up with a cake that's more dry or tough or dense. All right, so I've got a greased metal 8x8-inch baking pan. Metal is going to cook faster than glass or ceramic, so if you're using glass or ceramic, you might have to add a little bit more time onto the baking time. So I'm just going to spoon about half of the batter into this pan, and then we're going to sprinkle the streusel on top. That's why I love this recipe. There's a hidden layer with more streusel in the center, which is the best part, of course. So I'm just going to sprinkle half of the streusel over half of the batter in the pan. And it's going to get nice and gooey and crunchy, full of that sweet cinnamon brown sugar flavor. So delicious. And then it makes a really pretty ribbon through the center of the cake that you can see when you cut it into squares once it's done baking. Now the rest of the batter. So you just want to smooth the rest of the batter over that layer of streusel with a rubber spatula. And it definitely doesn't have to be perfect because we're just going to sprinkle the rest of the streusel on top. Okay, so now this is ready for a 350-degree oven. It'll take about 35 minutes. You want to put a toothpick in the center, and if it comes out clean, then you know it's ready to go. All right, so while the cake is in the oven baking, I'm going to move on to the super simple icing. And basically, it's just two ingredients, powdered sugar and maple syrup. I'm actually going to start by sifting the powdered sugar because we really want to make sure there's no lumps here. Okay, once the powdered sugar is all sifted, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Be sure to use the real stuff, not imitation stuff, not the stuff you serve with breakfast pancakes, but the real stuff. Okay, then I'm just going to take a fork and give that a stir until it comes together in a really nice, thick, but still pourable icing. And then what I actually like to do is pour the icing into a little Ziploc bag, snip one corner of the bag, and then drizzle it all over my cake once it's out of the oven. All right, so once the cake is iced, you can serve it warm, or you can cover it and keep it at room temperature for a few days. It stays nice and soft and moist, but I'm going to go ahead and cut myself a piece and give it a try. crust is super moist, super tender, loaded with pumpkin spice flavor. I love the maple and the pecans. So many amazing tastes, textures. I think you're really gonna love this recipe. So if you'd like to give this recipe a try, be sure to head on over to handletheheat.com to get the full printable recipe. If you have any pumpkin spice loving friends, be sure to share this video with them, and I'll see you in another video soon.